welcome back to another episode of World of Tanks and Guinness Titan. We're on Murovanka. I'm in the Thunderbolt and a bottom tier in a very much strong tier 8 game. It's one of those situations where you'd almost sort of give up in despair at the very start, considering that you're in a little Thunderbolt and you're up against a very strong selection of tier 8 tanks, including a very strong selection of tier 8 mediums. And you think, what am I going to do and how am I going to survive this game? Well, I suppose all you can do is endeavour to persevere, which is a lovely phrase that comes from the middle. It always reminds me, it's out of the outlaw Josie Wales, in the middle where Josie Wales meets Lone Watty. Lone Watty starts telling them stories about the Cherokee and the Cree and their encounters with the US government, and how shortly before the Civil War the Secretary of the Interior met the chiefs of the Indian nations and told them to endeavour to persevere, and how they considered these words and decided to declare war on the white men. I mean, what other interpretation could you make of them if you were in their position? Endeavour to persevere. However, this is what we try to do in the bottom tier. Endeavour to persevere. The trick is to try and shoot people without being seen. The gun in this thing isn't bad. Like, it's actually a very good gun. The problem is that it doesn't do a lot of damage. And the tank is both slow and fragile. At least when you're facing up against top tier tanks. And the other problem is that Murovanka doesn't have great sightlines. I mean, if there were a lot of tanks, ideally the medium tanks should be coming up the west, through the forest. Or to the east, rather, shall we say, through the forest. East of the village, and swing around that way, rather than engage in a peekaboo fighting on the ridgeline. But practically our entire team is lined up on the ridgeline. There's a couple of tanks anchoring from the base of the town, and we have one lone scout in the Magic Forest. Now, the scout in the Magic Forest, actually we've been behaving rather sensibly. The enemy are actually coming through the village, and I think coming through the village, now there's mostly low tier tanks, but coming through the village is just a bad move. I've never seen, unless the enemy have already been seriously weakened by the fighting at the ridgeline or the fighting in the Magic Forest, coming through the village, never see it work out for anyone, because you get spotted and you get shot at from both east and west. You're exposed through odd sightlines through the houses, and while I'm not getting lines of sight in anyone, someone does. You know, someone invariably does. And the thing is, you see, that they're very strong in the town, where they're being shot at from both sides. They're in inflating fire. But they're actually quite weak in front of the critical point there on the 2 line. There's not enough of them there to oppose the guns that are against them. So the guys that are opposing our fellas there are probably outnumbered. So that when they peek the corner, they get shot at multiple times and multiple targets, and the 3 lads at the back there at C1, they don't get great shots at anyone without exposing themselves. And we are starting to, you see, the thing is that, well, I'm starting to get a few shots. I missed that one, because he's driven into the back of the house and he's driven into the back of the outhouse. This one should hit. It's spotted though, so I better pull back. And there's no enemy. I can be reasonably sure, like, the enemies aren't to the north, because they, the light tank would have spotted them. Now, I get a shot into the Pershing? Yes, I do. So we're starting to rack up some damage. And it's all these guys that are in the middle. So far, and yeah. See, we're gaining on the attrition as well. So the Amex CDC has decided to come west because he's wondering what's going on. I've been spotted and he's taken an opportunity to shoot at me. Now, he's no trouble putting, he's got a very good gun. He would have no trouble putting rounds through me. The problem with his location is that he is, again, vulnerable to fire from multiple sources. He can be shot from the village, he can be shot from the light tank to the north of him. And, well, I'm getting shots off as well, although not as effectively. He's reasonably well covered from me. Because, of course, I don't want to expose myself to him either. The FE 4202 was chasing a lighter tank. The FE 4202P is chasing a lighter tank, and the problem he has here is that, well, he seems to get fixated on somebody other than me. I don't think he's aware of my presence. I mean, I'm surely spotted. I can't say he couldn't have spotted me. And I was a 2-shot kill, so it would have been an easy kill. Admittedly, the situation is collapsing for his team, so maybe he just decided, I suppose he maybe spotted the heavy tank closing in, that he decided it wasn't worth the risk. However, again, he's making the mistake of going to ground in the village. I think he should have just pulled clear and pulled right into the western side. He should have gone north, broken contact, and come back south onto the ridgeline, at least to be with his buddies, rather than sitting there in isolation, where he basically achieved nothing other than providing me with a decent score at the end of this game. And that's it, it's all over at this point. While I've been playing tag with the FE 4202P and the CDC, the rest of the enemy position on the western side of the map just collapsed completely, and their initial our initial lead in tanks just became overwhelming. But that's basically the cascade effect in action. They kept trying what they were doing. What they were doing wasn't working. They were losing tanks, and once they lost tanks, the guys coming along tried harder, and they lost more tanks. Because it became easier for our guys, because the numerical superiority just got bigger and bigger. So initially they might be exposing themselves to the fire of 2 tanks, and they were peaking that ridgeline, and then now they're exposing themselves to the fire of 5 or 6 tanks. And now it's all over, and that was a lucky bounce there, I think, because that turns out to be a T-25-2 that's hiding in the bushes up there. Again, well, presumably he wasn't there all game. If he was there all game, then he's contributed mightily to his team's defeat, but it would be manoeuvrable enough to have fled up to that location for the last stand, which wouldn't have been a totally stupid thing to have done. But it was very unfortunate actually to bounce around off of mine, because most of the time, I would say 8 times out of 10, shooting the front of a Thunderbolt with T-25-2 the round would have gone through. However, I think the Thunderbolt is a lovely little tank, and I mean, it's viable even with no skilled crew. So, and even, like I said, under the right circumstances in the bottom tier, you can actually do reasonably well with it. Go Thunderbolt, number 1 by experience and 2nd class mastery, and a bottom tier in a tier 8 match. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like, comment, share. It really helps the channel out. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.